What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Showdown King Show. We got JVC, we got Bryce, you got me, Mangone. We're watching Packers Raiders, and listen, I am excited for Packers Raiders. As a Packers fan, I've kind of been looking forward to this year and just watching Jordan Love because it's like, I don't know, JVC, you probably understand. It's like, is this quarterback our guy or not, right? Like, it's kind of a fun year to evaluate and understand, can he get the job done? This is a game that I think, as either a Packers or a Raiders fan, whichever side you're on, like this is one of those must wins to make your season either like a 10-7 or like you go 6-10 or whatever the records are now. So I think it's kind of a big game for both sides. JBC, you are obviously talking Showdown, so we're not talking who's been in the game and stuff, but maybe you got some bets to throw over the people. You've been on fire over at the Run Pure Sports and the Run Pure Bet side. So what you got any bets for us that you can give free to the people, and what's your thoughts on some Showdown, just to kind of give a Slate overview?
I like the Raiders a lot tonight. I think that with Jimmy back, they I just think that the Packers don't really have the horses to hang with them with Jones out and everything. So I definitely think the Raiders are going to win this game.
Okay, it's cool. Bryce, what about you? What are you thinking of this game? Like, I think when we look at this slate in general, and we'll get the Showdown a little bit, but like, what's your slate overview? I think we had last night's slate where there was no value, it felt like, to play, but the value plays kind of found a way to get there. And I think on this slate, we have a lot more value plays that you can go to, but maybe that's not the route to end up going to. And there's obviously the condensed Raiders. We'll talk about all these, but what's kind of your like first thoughts when you kind of opened up the slate? What were you thinking?
I love Raiders showdowns personally, just because they're such a condensed team. It's like a little bit easier to figure out. I mean, without Jones, the Packers are much more playable on this slate in general, just because like they were still all overpriced with Jones back. Like they got him and Watson back, and their prices have been like slowly creeping down because like these guys are taking up a lot of the stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think you get some good value plays. Like Patrick Taylor seems like a really good value to me for 200. It's not like last night I played that dumbass tight end from
Shoemaker.
Yeah, I played Shoemaker over Juszczyk in cash. I still did well in cash, but like I thought it was worth the punt. And yeah, I mean, sometimes it just goes to show you how valuable cheap players can be. Like you can get there even if they do shit, like if the rest of your team does well. Like I wasn't near the top because I didn't have Kittle. I had Debo and then McCaffrey captain. But there was a Kittle team I was looking at. I was between like three different teams. The Kittle team would have been very nutted. So chose wrong there, still got there in cash. In tournaments, I didn't do shit because I didn't play any onslaughts.
Yeah,
and it was all 5-1. I was over on Kittle, but 5-1 onslaught won, so I didn't have any teams near the top with that.
JVC, before we get into the slate a little bit, Luke Shoemaker yesterday, how much percentage did you have? If you don't know this, over at Run Pure Sports, JVC puts up his captain pool, so does Big T. If you haven't signed up yet, you can go see what their allocation is going to be on a slate, right? So if you pull it up right now, I can tell you JVC's captains. I see the ownership there. I can see who he has in the flex, who he's not playing in the flex, and so on and so forth. So I'm actually curious because Shoemaker was an interesting, like he was like the best value on this slate. He wasn't good, right? He wasn't a good play. How much did you have yesterday?
I think I was like 13% on him and Juszczyk, give or take a little bit, that off the top of my head. I thought that there, obviously when McCaffrey is there, you kind of need to find salary relief somewhere. And so I ended up with a lot of both of them, even though they were kind of mid as far as value plays. And then this slate tonight, it's kind of the opposite. You don't really need the salary relief because because Taylor's down there, Dillon's there. It's completely different than last night.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a different kind of slate. We'll dive into it now. We'll talk cash games real quick first, just to kind of get that out the way. I know we talked that a bunch, but Bryce, let's go to you first on the cash game perspective. Like, we talked about the Raiders. It's pretty condensed. I think it's Adams or Jacobs captain, and then MVP. I think you can make the argument for that over on FanDuel. But how do you handle the captain and MVP spot today here, Bryce?
I think it's super close between those two. There's also a Jimmy G team that I saw. You could do him. I don't think it's worth going with the chief captain here, just because. I mean, as Mark said, there's plenty of salary relief out there. So I would captain one of those four. The Raiders position players have such good condensing of the offense. Like the offense is Jacobs, Devontae, and then Myers, and basically no one else does shit. So it's a little easier for me to play like a position player over a quarterback at captain. On FanDuel, Jordan Love was super expensive. If you look at my cash scores on the site, it's pretty much all Raiders. And that's just because like they're way cheaper, and you can actually do a lot with that salary and make like a really solid team with those three and like a Patrick Taylor type of punt. So I think the kickers are in play here. I think the mid-tier receivers are in play. Dobbs, Watson, and Myers, all of them. I'm a little lower on Musgrave here than the market. I think I don't love the defenses, but I'm not like going to be way under them or anything in GPP. And that's pretty much it. Gun to my head, if I had to choose a captain, I mean, Jacobs just has really good props today. I think I would go Jacobs over Adams. And, if Adams is still banged up a little bit from his shoulder, like if there's any re-injury risk there, I think that eliminates some. Like, I think it might be a little safer. So that's kind of my thinking on that one. But, I mean, I love Adams here. I mean, he can have an absolute monster game. You do have the revenge narrative. He really dominates man coverage. I think I saw a stat where it's like he gets targeted way more against man coverage than zone. And I'm expecting Jair Alexander to cover him tonight. So that kind of makes me like Adams as well. It's super close between the top guys, but I'd definitely play an expensive guy captain.
Cool. Any values you want to discuss, and then we'll move on to tournaments.
I mean, the values that really stick out to me are the Packers running backs without Jones. Kickers are always decent value. I think you can play Hooper as a value. I think you can play Emmanuel Wilson as a value. Like if you want to take a stand on like him over Patrick Taylor, I wouldn't play two cheap guys, like mega cheap, just because there's no need. Like, so yeah. I did no 5-1s in GPP, but I think Renfro's an okay value. I mean, he's like, he kind of sucks, but he's there. Michael Mayer is playable as a value as well. That's kind of, and Dontavian Wicks is kind of like the guys that are playable under $1,000, in my opinion. I wouldn't go anyone else.
Cool. And then
what I was going to say was Wicks. They gutted his price, so Wicks is definitely playable today. Whereas these last few Packers Showdown slates, you haven't been able to play him at all because they've been pricing him. They were pricing him at like $5,000 and shit.
Cool. Let's get the tournaments. So JVC, you have some interesting takes when it comes to tournaments in the captain spot today. Why don't we break it all down? So when I looked at this slate, I kind of felt like I knew you were going to do this route that you're going to discuss. But I actually think one of the bigger things on this slate that we'll get to is I think you really have to figure out which the right Packers are. I think like if you told me I could like, what is the key to unlocking this slate? It's like, man, if I knew which the right Packers were, I feel like I could just like easily ship, right? I think that's where you're going to see, I think that's the best spot to get more diverse. Raiders, we know how condensed it's going to be. But talk about this captain spot and some of the stuff you're looking to do here, JVC.
I mean, like the last Raider Showdown, which worked amazingly, I'm only playing Adams and Jacobs because, as Bryce said a minute ago, the offense is just way too condensed. Their props are astronomical. And you don't need the salary relief. like we talked about earlier, AJ Dillon and Taylor are both there. The kickers are there. And there are other cheap options, Hooper. It just doesn't make sense not to just jam in Adams and Jacobs at captain. So I'm only playing the two of them.
Yeah, I'm with you on like you gotta like the Raiders guys to how condensed it is, but I want Packers captains. I do. I'm torn. I think it's Adams over Jacobs for me, at least how I've adjusted things. But listen, I'm not going to talk you off if you think it's a Jacobs side. That's your strong stance. You want to go with that. I lean Adams. My other thing is trying to figure out, I do want some of these Packers in the captain spot. JVC, you're not playing Packers in the captain, but if you were, I'd be curious who you would like kind of lean to first.
Love. I think Love has some rushing upside. He gets a lot of, the last time that Jones was out, he carried the ball inside the goal line several times. Beyond Love, Dobbs is more of a floor play, Watson a ceiling play, so probably Watson. AJ Dillon obviously could have a huge game with Jones being out and the other guys being like practice squad fodder. I don't mind any of that. I just didn't want to spend any resources on it. And then I'd rather just play Jacobs and Adams teams.
Yeah, with you on that. Bryce is. I don't know what they're doing over there. They're either getting.
We're putting in a sound bar.
Oh, you're putting in a sound bar. Nice.
Yeah.
Our sound bar is not currently set up here at the house because we moved and stuff. But the sound bar is nice for sure. It's a nice little addition. But so Bryce, we'll go to you. How are you handling the captain spot tonight? I mean, captains are obviously a big talking point. I think JVC's taking a really big stand there. I'm curious to see if you're taking a similar stand or if you're mixing in some of these Packers here.
I think the Packers that I'd want to mix in would be the receivers, Watson and Dobbs. I think if you're not playing, I think it's a great slate to fade QB at captain and like play a ton of QB in flex, just because the position players are so good here with the value on the Packers side and the condensed offense on the Raiders side. So I think my captain pool, I'm debating between doing the double Raiders shove and these other guys. I have two files with it. So I think the other file includes Love, Watson, Dobbs, and Myers, just to get some Packers exposure and spread it out a bit. But I'm really liking the allocation on this double only Adams and Jacobs just split down the middle. I think it's super hard to differentiate between them. As I said, I think I'd lean Jacobs in cash and Adams in tournaments slightly, but if you're playing double, it's pretty easy to just go 50-50 and middle that one.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I think that decision is tough on the Jacobs Adams thing in cash. That's one I'm definitely making a decision on. JBC, I'll go back to you because let's just talk a little bit of lineup construction, and I'll bring up something from last night's slate. So I was just looking, and I think dupes are always a good conversation in Showdown, right? How many dupes, right? I don't care if I'm duped with like 10 people, 3 people, but I'm probably care if I'm duped with 400 people or something insane. I think if you looked at yesterday's slate, like I think Niners D with like just all the studs was the most duplicated route. I think if you play Jacobs and Adams in the captain and you go Raiders onslaughts, I think you are going to be more duplicated in that way. Can you talk about if you're playing Jacobs or Adams captain, how do you make them unique, right? I think that's like a really tough thing. And not everyone's using an optimizer like you might be. Some people might be hand building right now. How on earth do you make them unique?
I don't really worry about it. I just, I play a high floor. Some of them are going to be super dupes, some of them are not. But just because of how random I get, I don't play it super narrow like at utility. I force in on one of Love or Garoppolo, but I don't do any weird rules as far as the defenses or, double kicker or any of that shit. So it just kind of naturally gets more diverse than you think it would. And it just doesn't make a lot of sense to force it. Like I wouldn't leave salary or anything to force it. You're going to be able to get some more diverse teams with guys like, Abdullah and shit where people aren't there. You're going to have 6 or 7% of them when the market's at like 1 or 2, and those teams will be the unique ones. But yeah, I mean, if Patrick Taylor is the nuts, it's going to be duped 100 times. That's just how it goes.
Yes, for sure. We'll obviously talk about Patrick Taylor and all the other captain options. I saw someone talking about the quarterbacks. Let's go to the quarterbacks in the flex, JVC, because like last night, Christian McCaffrey. I mean, one of his worst games you could see. If I told you on that slate without knowing anything, especially you were more on the Cowboys side, I know yesterday it seemed like, if Christian McCaffrey got you 14 DK points, I don't think you would be like, yeah, he's for sure optimal. And guess what? He was very optimal yesterday. And we talked about I think the Geno Daniel Jones slate, right? People were trying to fade the quarterbacks there. The team that won all the money, it was a Seahawks captain with what? 2 quarterbacks. Is this a spot just to eat both the quarterbacks more so and get overweight on them? Or is this a spot to kind of look for some fades?
I mean, I think that you need one in the lineup at least. But beyond that, like I wouldn't be forcing doubles because Adams and Jacobs are better placed than the quarterbacks are. So you're going to want more Adams and Jacobs than the quarterbacks. I think the quarterbacks I ended up around 60% of both of them in the flex, with at least one in every lineup. So 80% of my lineups would only have one quarterback and 20% have both, just because I wanted to have 80% exposure to both Adams and Jacobs. And you can't have all 4 of them, so that's kind of just where it landed.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good point there. Bryce, I'll talk to you. How do you handle the quarterbacks tonight and some of these other studs? Obviously, you like to get exposure to Jacobs and Adams in the flex, but how are you handling Jordan Love and Jimmy Garoppolo here?
I think Love's a better play than Jimmy G, just because like you can get the Raiders exposure as we've talked through like these condensed players. Like you can even add Myers like up there with like Adams and Jacobs. Like if you take those 3, like Jimmy G could easily not be optimal. Like I think if the Raiders play well, Jimmy G isn't guaranteed to be optimal. If the Packers play well, Love is guaranteed to be optimal. So that's kind of how I'd handle the quarterbacks. Lean Love. I'm playing a lot of both in the flex though. So yeah, you're just always gonna end up playing a lot in the flex if you like jam like just a couple guys at captain now, because if you're not playing any quarterback captain, I wouldn't consider Jimmy G at all as a captain on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he can get there at captain. I would consider Love a captain on DraftKings just because of his rushing upside.
Yeah, and I will say when you look at the cores on the site, a lot of Raiders captains. One guy has a Packer in the captain that is Jordan Love. So if you want to check that out, again, go sign up at Run Pure Sports NFL 15 to get you 15% off. We're crushing it over here, and we're going to continue to. Big T's on a massive heater, and when Big T's on a heater, you definitely got to take notice. So waiting for the Big T core, that's always worth looking at before kind of making your final adjustments, and he's going to get his player pool in there shortly. JBC, all right, let's keep going down. I know everyone wants to talk about Patrick Taylor. We'll get there, just wait. We got tons of time to discuss that. We've talked a little bit about it, but let's dive in to the guys below the quarterback. So let's go from like Romeo Doubs to Jalen Reed, which is basically 3 Packers wide receivers and Jacoby Myers. So you got Watson, Doubs, and Reed. I liked Watson last game. We discussed that a little bit, I think, and the point was the ceiling is just too high to ignore. I'm surprised you don't have him at all today. He was dealing with the hamstring last game, got less snaps in that one. I think the snaps increased. The question is, how much do they increase, obviously? Then you got Myers, who's a decent wide receiver 2 option. And then Reed and Doubs are certainly going to be in the mix. These guys are options that I think we have to mix and match throughout our teams. How do you kind of break the ties between them, and who are you leaning, and who do you like the least?
They're all the same to me, the 3 of them. Well, I mean, Reed is worse, but Doubs, Watson, Myers are all the same. I have them all projected about the same. I have their allocations all about the same. I've got them all like 35, 40%. I understand Watson has a lot of upside, but you don't need the salary. And Adams and Jacobs are much more likely to pop for like a big number than he is. He could get 25 and still not be the optimal captain. I just don't. I don't see a reason to put him in there.
Yeah, and I just did a fun thing real quick. I put Watson in the captain with Adams, Jacobs, and Love. 2 spots left, 3.3 for your spots. So, you have a lot of salary today for sure. It just it seems like that. I forget which slate it was recently. You were like, The Kenneth Walker slate. You're like, oh, it's really loose. Is it loose like that slate? You might argue.
Yeah, for sure. But it's not. This one is a little more obvious in terms of what the value plays are. Like the Packers starting running back is out. Play the Packers running backs. Like it's relatively simple.
Yep. Bryce, do you agree with JVC? Kind of all those receivers kind of the same, or do you have any strong leans?
I don't have any strong leans. I like Myers. Maybe I think just because it's such a condensed offense, he's absolutely smashed with Jimmy G. His bad game was with what's his face, AOC, and
here's a question.
And he wasn't able to do shit. Like he just looked for his first read, and if the first read wasn't there, which in their first read is normally Adams, he just checked it down to Jacobs every time.
Here's my question: Was Jacoby Myers with Jimmy G in New England? I've been wondering that. Is that for sure? No. Okay.
No.
I thought they could have crossed paths, but I think it was like one left and then the other showed up. I think that's how it went, right?
Something like that.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I know Cam Newton had a really good connection with Jacoby Myers for some reason. Something with like when he was like younger and like at his camp or something weird like that. So I just didn't know. Sometimes there's wide receiver quarterback connections that you just don't know that just kind of pop up. But I think overall it's close between them all. My lean is, I would say my order is Watson, Myers, Dobbs, Reed. But like there's no big gaps between them. I think it's all pretty close.
I think Reed falls behind those three for me.
Agreed.
Personally,
agreed.
It's pretty close. It's pretty close up there. I think Watson for upside, maybe Myers for floor. I mean, Dobbs also has a pretty good floor. He's been getting peppered with targets, and without Jones, they might use him as an extension of the running game a bit.
Yeah, and I can see that reflected in ownership a bit. So that's obviously something that if you want to go the lower owned route, that would be the guy that you would go to there. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. Let's kind of keep moving along. Let's go down to the next range. I guess we'll go from Raiders to like Musgrave. So you got the defenses, the kickers, you got AJ Dillon and Luke Musgrave. Luke Musgrave obviously has been pretty good to start out the year. Been a pretty good value. AJ Dillon is like the RB1, like dirt cheap value on the slate that you just can't ignore. And then you got defenses and kickers, which JVC, please stop the defenses. Please. I just can't take it much longer. It is driving me insane. I don't know if I just need to be a fish and jump on board or keep going the other way. Talk to me about, I want to know your defensive exposure for sure. We got it because it's a talking point. People are going to mention it in the chat for sure. So tell me that, and then tell me how you're handling all the other plays in this range.
Defenses, I'm like 5% on both of them. Vegas doesn't have a very good defense, and they can score. I see this game being a shootout personally. I lean to the over, so I don't really like the defenses too much. Garoppolo, I would not describe as a mistake-prone quarterback. That might be the last thing I would describe him as. So, I don't see a lot of upside here for defense, and with so much other value, it just doesn't make sense to play him very much. Dillon, I've got about almost 50% in utility. I see Tony is scoring him at captain. Those Dillon captain teams are pretty good. Musgrave and the kickers, I've got them all in the mid-20s. Musgrave, I don't like him as much as I have in past weeks. His props are pretty dusty for somebody playing the Raiders, which is kind of alarming to me. And then you said down to Zamir White or...
No, yeah, I'd stop at White because that's where you get into the values. It's more, down to the defenses. So stop at actually add Zamir in there just because he's similar price. I don't know exactly what to do with someone like a Zamir White. I mean, I know we just saw backup running backs crush, but there's also Abdullah there who gets mixed in. It's like it's just not enough volume, I think, at that price of 3.2 to make that much sense.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about opportunities to get unique. The double teams with Jacobs and Zamir White would be how that would happen for people building in a similar manner to me. So I actually have Zamir White like 7%, a usable number. I've got him more than the defenses. Yeah,
and I would say like, when would you not use Zamir White? Like if you were playing 50 teams, 20 teams, not obviously everyone not listening is playing 150. Like what would be the point where you wouldn't use someone like a Zamir White?
I tend to not actively axe anybody at utility. Just kind of let the projections do their work. But he's not projected great. Like in a vacuum, he's the worst play among the players that are projected above 0. But that also means that nobody will have him. So, tit for tat.
All right, cool. Bryce, talk about this range then. Go from Musgrave to Zamir White. Obviously, a lot of plays that we have to like in this range. And, of course, defense and kickers, always a fun talking point.
Yeah, I'm fucking tired of defenses. It's not as bad on FanDuel just because, like, they're normally more playable on FanDuel with the scoring. But I'm getting pretty tired of it. Kickers, I'll probably be around the field. I don't, go under kickers in – way too under unless a kicker is absurdly owned, like a Justin Tucker. People always play him way too much. Yeah, I mean, I think the position players are really good today in general, just because, Jones is out, so you get value. And we've talked about how condensed the Raiders offense is. So, yeah, I mean, don't captain kickers. You can play them. Don't captain defenses. You probably should be underweight on them. You don't need to entirely fade them, but you don't want to I've kind of come around to not just stone fading someone unless I just think it's just a god awful play. And defenses, I mean, it's variable. They can get there, but they're going to be in the optimal lineup, way less than they have been so far this year. Remember one year, I think last year was the tight end year. Tight ends got there every showdown slate. This year it's been defenses have gotten there every showdown slate. So I don't know. I mean, it's just a small sample size of games, and people overreact to it, and we'll probably play too much defense here.
Yeah, if I do like a defense, it's probably the Packers defense if I had to pick, just because Jimmy Garoppolo definitely he's kind of a game manager, but when the game gets away from him, that's where he's kind of gets forced to do things and stupid things happen, right? Also, he's more of a statue kind of quarterback, and statue kind of quarterbacks lead to sacks and stuff like that. So I do think that if I pick a defense, it's the Packers defense. I just noticed on the last run I made, I had 15%, and I think I had 0 Raiders defense. And then I definitely have exposure to the kickers. I believe it's a brother kicker showdown. We've never seen the brothers kicker showdown action, so we'll have to see how that pans.
Are they brothers? I thought they just had the same last name.
They're brothers.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
If you look at the picture, they look really similar. So I just kind of was like, hey, they got to be brothers. I didn't look it up.
I don't pay attention enough to kickers. I hate those fucking losers. They're gutless and should play real position.
Let's keep moving this thing along, and then we'll get to your questions. Also, if you're asking any questions in the Run Pure Sports Discord live show chat, just shift them over to the free premium chat on the YouTube channel. I'm only going to look at those today. So that's your warning. Make sure to put them in there. I'll give you one more warning too. I'll try to go back to some old ones if I got them in the queue, and we'll break it all down. Now we're at the part where we can talk about Patrick Taylor and all these other cheap options. First of all, Hunter Renfrow is down there, and Hunter Renfrow is dead ever since Holden mentioned him, so you can blame Holden for the death of Hunter Renfrow. We got obviously Abdullah we can discuss. I know Wiley was talking about Austin Hooper for some reason, and of course we got the Patrick Taylor conversation, and we got our guy John joining the chat, Statistationnal. So welcome to the show. Happy to have you. We'll obviously ask you some questions along the way, but JVC, talk about Taylor and the other values here on this slate.
Yeah, I mean, Taylor, obviously in any passing situation, that would be the script for Taylor being in there. They seem to favor him with the passing stuff over Wilson. They seem to favor him with the passing stuff over A.J. Dillon. So, I mean, I've got a lot. I'm in the 20s, but I'm not sure how high the market's going to go, because I always think these 200 cost guys, everybody's going to play them, and then all of a sudden, they only end up 10 or 15%. I guess just because if you're a guy that's just clicking through a lineup, you wouldn't notice it. As far as Austin Hooper, I like him a lot. I've got him 15%. I think he's a great play. 600 is way too cheap. I don't see any reason not to play him. I almost like him better than Taylor.
What about this Emmanuel Wilson guy for leverage, right? We don't know. He could easily be the guy that gets a little bit more work, or it could be split. And who knows if he just gets a catch for Turpin got that catch yesterday, right? I don't know. What's your thoughts on that as a value, just basically off of Taylor?
Yeah, I mean, I like him too. That's the problem with this slate is that, well, the problem and the solution is that there's 1,200,000 cost guys there that you can play. You can, and or 1,000 or less, really. You can play Abdullah, you can play Hooper, you can play Dontavion Wicks, you can play Taylor, you can play Wilson, you can play Michael Mayer. I that's the reason I'm jamming Adams and Jacobs at captain, is because there's a million different combinations down low, and it doesn't make sense not to use the value.
Cool. Let's go to you, Bryce, and then we'll have John button it up and give some other thoughts on the slate. Bryce, what about the values today? Who are some of your favorites?
I mean, Patrick Taylor's my favorite value of the day, and I think the market will agree on that. He'll definitely be higher owned. It's kind of why I like what Mark said, where like if you're jamming captains, you can just get like a really good spread of these cheap guys, because like, if Emmanuel Wilson could outscore Patrick Taylor, like a bunch of these cheap guys could. I mean, would I bet on it? No, but like at ownerships, like these guys are all going to come in super low because Taylor's going to take all the ownership down there. So like Hooper, Wicks, I like Myers, and Emmanuel Wilson are like the pivots off of Taylor. I think Renfro is playable. Don't love him. He sucks. And, he's not getting the targets. Like he really needs the targets to produce. I think Dillon is too good of a play to pass up here. I think I'm at least 50% Dillon in my file for GPP, and I'm definitely playing him in cash. I have him as a cash core. Who else was cheap? Abdullah doesn't pique my interest as much as some of these other cheap guys, just because he's a little more expensive. I don't really want to play the Green Bay backup tight ends. I don't think Torre is really much of a play. Like I don't think I have any of him. I don't think I have any of the Green Bay backup tight ends. There's just a lot of good value that like I would kind of like stick to those like 6 guys I mentioned.
All right, cool. John, talk about the values and then circle back and just give kind of an overview of how you're handling. I'd be curious, can you give me a better take than JBC's? I'm only playing Jacobs and Adams. Can you give me something with a little bit of flavor here?
I mean, it makes sense. I would want to have a little bit more exposure to the Green Bay wide receivers, though, at the captain. So, look, there's so many cheap options. I think it's been pounded to death, but that's the reason you can play so much Adams and Jacobs at the captain spot. But I think generally, the quarterbacks you could toss at captain here today, I think it's definitely going to be either Jacobs or a wide receiver, be it Adams or one of the two, probably just one of the two, Dobbs or Watson from Green Bay. So when you look at it, though, I was looking at running back against Green Bay, just how poorly Green Bay has done statistically against the backs. What they've given up in fantasy is crazy. Now, the Raiders have been terrible at the running back spot, but you got to figure Jacobs is going to eventually be able to get out. I know he had a good week last week. That was a little bit of a different offense with O'Connell in there. So you think this is a week that Jacobs should get healthy. Just look at the numbers that they've given up to or what Green Bay's given up to that position. So I think this is going to be a good week for Jacobs. The question is, does Adams outscore him, or does one of these wide receivers for Green Bay? So I think those are the only ways you could go at the captain spot. And yeah, having more Adams and Jacobs, I totally get it, because of the fact that you with the injury to Jones and Jones being out, you've got options. What's interesting is I'm looking at I like looking at the touchdown props when you do this, because to me that's a good way to find some of the value at the cheap spot. So look at the touchdown props, and then that's where you'll find out where these like sub 2,000, sub 1,000 guys, where at least the money is that they score, because that's typically when they get in the end zone, that's when they're in the nut lineup, right? So it's weird. Like DraftKings has nothing on Taylor, but they do have a Wilson prop for touchdowns at like I think he was at like 380 or something like that. But on FanDuel, Wilson was like 600, and then Taylor is 420. So it's interesting, plus 420 to get a touchdown. I mean, Taylor seems like the choice here, but I don't know. Did you play any Wilson at all, JBC?
Yeah, I've got him like 7-8%. I think that He's definitely a worse play than Taylor because Taylor's so much more involved in the passing game. And, you know, a receiving touchdown is worth more than a rushing touchdown. So he's definitely a better option. But, yeah, I think you play them both in different amounts. But they're definitely both in play.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering if some of these cheaper guys are going to be even higher just for the fact that people want to shove in Adams at the captain, because it would have been really tough to play Adams at the captain if you didn't have so many good options.
Mm-hmm.
Cheap, like if Jones was playing tonight, I don't know how much you could have done Adams and I don't know if you would have went 50-50. I don't know if you could have.
Right. Jones, I mean, I definitely would have played Jones.
You would have played Jones, yeah.
Because of his ceiling, right? His ceiling's just stupid. Like, it's just, you can't ignore that for sure, especially with how bad Dylan's been. But obviously with Dylan just getting all the work, it's like, okay, that makes a lot of sense, especially against a team like the Raiders, right? Like Aaron Jones probably isn't ripping an 80-yard touchdown against the Niners, but the probability goes up against a team like the Raiders for sure. I know it's not like rocket science or anything, but just figured I would mention that. Let's get to some questions from the chat. We'll kind of dive into those. Let's see. I'm going to scroll up as far as I'm able to, and then just kind of dive in and see what we can talk about here. Because we'll go with the first one right here, because this is a funny one. I don't know if you guys were watching the show last night, but Kurt was talking about how Kittle was like the best fade on the slate, and then we jumped on. We played the Kittle first time touchdown. So yes, I made the Kittle first time touchdown bet. But if you're looking for today's bet that Kurt hated, Kurt said AJ Dillon is like a trash can. So we have a first time touchdown bet on that. We're rooting that on. So if you want to get in on that, just to run it back, we're going to run it back at least one more time. So we'll be doing that. Let's sift through some questions here, though, and see what we can find. Thoughts on Jordan Love captain? John, I'll throw that one to you just because I think you're going to be able to embrace that a little bit more than some others, but talk about that to me.
I just don't like the quarterbacks at captain. It's typically overwhelmingly you're gonna have wide receiver and running back at the captain spot. Typically, when you see the quarterbacks in the captain, it's a little bit of a higher scoring or a higher team total projection on a game. So and a larger spread. So typically, it's a big favorite quarterback in a higher scoring game. So I would stay away from both of these quarterbacks at the captain spot. And like I said, I would really focus on the wide receivers and Jacobs.
All right, cool. Good points there. JVC, this one's for you. Does JVC stand for Jim Bob Cooter? So how about you, you're still newer to the site, right? Tell the people, give them the story of JVC.
Oh, I mean, it's not a long story. My brother was Big Cheese, so I'm Junior Bacon Cheeseburger.
There you go. So that's why he is JBC. So there, if you want, let's say you ship because of JBC, go grab yourself a Junior Bacon Cheeseburger.
Mangone, you kind of have a what's his name from the quarterback, Minshew. You kind of have a Minshew look.
Yeah, I got the Minshew call too. I didn't do the Rodgers handlebars. I've done that before. It's fun to do.
Well, plus with the hair growing out in the back, Minshew looked good. Minshew's a good QB. I've been saying this for years that he's the best backup QB in the NFL.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I hate to see Richardson out, but they've definitely done okay with the back. I don't think there's a better backup in the league.
I played Minshew a ton when Hurts was out. I played Minshew every single time. He was too cheap and people wouldn't do it. And did well every time. I think one of them was Thanksgiving, maybe. I'm not sure on that, but it was against Cowboys. It was a tough matchup, and I still did it, and it worked out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's definitely Minshew's not that bad. And hey, a backup quarterback, it's got to be one of the best gigs in the league. You get to hold the clipboard. You get one of the better pays for being a backup. So hey, he's got a pretty good gig there. Watson popping off tonight. I do think Watson is a interesting option, and I'll definitely have exposure in the captain. Why not Love in the captain? I know John just talked about it, but JBC, just circle back to that. Why would you not play Love in the captain?
I think that if Love ends up scoring a lot, then one of the Packer wide receivers will still beat him. That's basically the simplest way.
Yeah, I think Love could get there rushing. I would be much more welcome to playing Love at captain than Jimmy G. If Jimmy G's captain, that means he'd probably have to throw a TD. He'd probably have to throw 3 TDs, and it'd have to be to 3 different players, and no one would have to pop off and get the bonus.
They'd have to all not be Adams and Jacobs.
It would have to be one to a cheap rando, or one to each of Myers, Jacobs and Adams. If Jimmy G gets there at captain, one of these receivers, either Adams or Myers, is probably going to be the optimal captain.
All right, cool. Let's go over to the next one. I'm trying to.
And you can play quarterbacks and captain in cash. Like in tournaments, and it's not something I do unless it's like a running QB where like he can get the path to being like the high scorer. Has Taylor officially been brought up? Yeah, he's on the active roster tonight.
Yes, so he's in there. He's obviously one of the better values on the slate. Oh, here's the question I wanted to get to. It was I just lost it again. Oh, here it is. It's Bryce. I'll ask this one to you. Who do you like more for 2 anytime touchdown, Devontae Adams or Jacobs, if you had to pick?
Jacobs.
There you go. Jacobs is the answer there. Crosby, sacks, Love. Okay, Max Crosby. I was thinking Mason Crosby for a second. I was like, Mason Crosby's not on that team anymore. Is it okay to play 2 Packers in cash? I'll throw that one over to you, Bryce.
Say that again. 2 RBs. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, 2 RBs. 2 Packers RBs.
Yeah, they're too cheap. You can do that.
Cool. Take the Raiders defense. I don't agree with that. John, let's get your defensive take. Are you on or off the defenses today?
Don't particularly like the defenses tonight on either side. So they've been 2 really poor scoring defenses. I like the kickers more than defense. So I would have a higher weight on the kickers. Don't care for either one of these defenses. Just I'm not Jimmy G not going to throw a ton of turn. He's not going to throw the ball to them all that often. Maybe you get some from Love. I just don't see it. 45 and a half total. Again, I mean, listen, it's the hardest of all the positions to handicap, but barring some sort of a pick six, defensive score, special team score, they're not going to get there.
All right, JBC, we haven't talked about this. Uniques. I get being unique, but ain't no way. He didn't ask a question, but my question to you is, what are the uniques tonight? What are you looking at with that?
I dropped it down to 1 just because there are so many 200 cost guys. It's very difficult to play 2 uniques and a high floor with only the 2 captains. So I only did 1 unique.
And then min salary, what's your thoughts on min and max? Max, I believe you're just leaving it open.
Yeah, open max and 49K for the min.
All right, and we got DC, who's a member, clearly says Big T just posted, and then we got Jafar, who said, "Who does Big T like?" I mean, you got to go sign up at Run Pure Sports. So go sign up, use that code NFL15. It'll get you 15% off. John, let me throw this one to you. So 4-2 GB build with Adams and Carlson. I actually think the getting 4 Packers builds are really interesting, especially if you go in Adams or Jacobs in the captain. Like I really like going 2 Raiders and then going 4 Packers, which it's not easy to nail which ones it is, but I think that's a super unique way to build your Jacobs or Adams teams. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I mean, typically we don't like to go with the 5-1s, but or 4 2s and 3 3s. But when it happens, more often than not, it's when the running back gets to the when a running back gets in the captain spot. I'm going to bring up. Give me a second. I could bring up the stats on that. But actually, what I was saying is when it happens in reverse. So like if you have just like 2 Raiders with 4 Green Bay, more often than not, you're going to have the running back be the one, right? So because I think for obvious reasons, right? So the quarterback's probably not there, which means a lot of the wide receivers aren't going to be there with them. So if you have Jacobs as the captain, then I'm okay with taking 4 of the Green Bay players in a flex. So you could do a 2-4 more so.
I definitely agree with that's the best construction is Jacob. Like if you're Jacobs captain, Adams, and then 4 Green Bay with Jordan Love is the best construction.
Cool. Let's see. So this one, JBC, I think you can answer this pretty well. Just tuning, Captain Tucker, a solid play, right? Explain why you don't think that's a good play.
No, don't do that.
You have enough value. It makes no sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense. There's like one team, and it's like you play the 4 studs with him and Dylan, or him and Captain and Dylan, and it's just like that team is going to be a train, and every other Tucker team sucks. So there's no point to play it.
All right, cool. Let's see what else we got. I'm starting from the top, so there's like a lot of stuff I got to sift through. We're talking about the Kittle. That's where we were late on that. Wilson's TD prop is plus 380 only. John, Do you think that's, I mean, I think that you mentioned that before. Are there any other cheap guys that stuck out to you for maybe values that could be good touchdown options?
I mean, just looking at the, I wrote down all the touchdown props. I mean, you've got Hooper's at plus 450, Mayer's at plus 475 on DraftKings. At least that's what it was a little while ago. So those are the other two guys that are relatively. I mean, Mayer's at the 200, so a little bit more savings there than Hooper, but there's not a ton really. The only other guy that has decent odds is a guy that I'm not really fond of here, which is Renfro at 2,200, was plus 370. But there's not, other than those guys, there's not a lot. There's not a high probability any of these cheap guys really score a touchdown.
Yeah, by the way, someone said Jacobs has looked like absolute shit this year, though. I hate being the guy that's like, I'm a Packers fan and I know blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm not trying to be that, but like.
Your run defense sucks.
I have watched this team for years, and so have you guys. It's just every year, it's just bad.
Jacobs didn't, he didn't get there until the last minute, right? So he had no preseason really with the team.
He had goal line stolen from him last week because they did the tush push with O'Connell. They're not doing that shit with Jimmy G.
They won't do it with Jimmy G. This would probably be about the week where you would expect him to really start to come into his own, and then playing a defense as shit as this against the run. This should be really good.
Home favorite too. Like if they get up, they're just going to pound him. I mean, if there's a spot for Jacobs to get going, it's this.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah.
Yeah, John, I mean, not all of us are alphas like you, right? If you have a night out with a lady and you just get thrown in the mix, you'll crush it. Me, I need 4 weeks to get there. I need some time to prepare and set. So not all of us are like you, John, where you can just be in San Diego, grab a lady by the hand, and have a good night. So just throwing that out there.
Boy, the San Diego trip's never it's never gonna go away, huh?
Dude, Tony sneaking that incognito photo of you in the gym holding hands walking in the hotel.
The San Diego trip has a lot of fun memories, a lot of good pictures.
We need to post that photo.
No, we've posted the photo enough.
Yeah, not enough is how I would say. So let's keep moving. Dylan, at your own risk or lock. Dylan, a lock. Bryce, what's your exposure to Dylan? I think you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but where are you at?
Oh, I can't. Bryce, you're muted.
Yeah, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was bitching at Mateo. Thanks for letting me know. It'd be really bad if, like, whenever I'm on mute and start talking, I'm always worried that no one will say anything and just let me look like a fucking dumbass.
If Van Gogh was in here, I would have done that.
Dylan, I think I'm like 55% on in tournaments, and he's in my cash team, so I should be over on Dylan. I didn't play any Dylan cap, just because, like, I think with the salary relief, like the raw high scorer will get there. I don't think which is why I like the expensive captains.
There you go. I love the stats, Bucks. That's absolutely awesome. That's Dub KJ, one of our members. He was DMing me on Sunday for some help. So that's what we try to do, guys. Help you out. Big T says, how long will it take Mangone to get something on the wall behind him? He's been moved for months. That is wrong. It actually hasn't even been a month yet. So if you would like, actually, no, it's maybe been a month and like 3 days. So hasn't been months. It's been a month and 3 days. We'll get there. Don't worry, Big T. I'm too busy working on the Sims like you. That is more important. When you prioritize things in life, I think the white backdrop is perfectly fine. So
Travis, I'm going to buy you something to put on your wall if I ship tonight.
Okay, there we go. I see. Look, I'm already getting free stuff sent to me. So there we go. I would prefer an Anthony Edwards sign something. That's like the next purchase I want to make.
Oh, okay, if I win 6 figures, I'll send you Anthony Edwards sign something.
There we go. That's my guy. Big Anthony Edwards guy. I know you guys haven't been here for basketball season, but I am excited to watch Ant absolutely crush this year. We're starting to get to some 2v2s. Adams, Carlson. So Devontae Adams and I don't know which Carlson because you didn't say. And then Myers or Dobbs. So basically Adams and a kicker or Myers and Dobbs. We'll give that one to you, John.
Yeah, I mean, I like Adams and Carlson there. So that's the way I would go. Want either Carlson, but yeah.
By the way, we are screwed. Everyone picked Green Bay. So if you're on the Raiders side, good for you. If you're on the Green Bay side, we're all in trouble.
We are on the Raiders.
There you go. So I thought that was pretty good. Let's see. Someone said they dropped Dylan. Any news on Watson's snap counts? Have salary to move to Dobbs? Should I? Let's go to stats. I feel like you've dug for this information. Do you have any Watson snap count info?
Watson snap count as far as I mean, you got to expect he's going to be a lot more. I think he was 45% last week, something like that. You got to expect now he's going to be a much more normal snap share. When you look at his props are actually better than Dobbs. Like he's slightly there's less juice on him. They're about the same yardage prop. He's got a better touchdown prop. So I've got no problem. I like Watson a little bit more than Dobbs here.
By the way, it was on Thursday too, right? So more time to rest as well. I was going to ask Bryce about the props, but that was a good call by you. Bryce, does anything stick out prop wise? Like sometimes I feel like you can catch some things. I know you like to look at those. Did anything stick out prop wise for you?
Jacobs is propped higher than Adams. Myers and Adams props have been steaming. Myers has steamed a decent amount from a couple hours ago, so people are betting on the Raiders passing game a little bit heavier here. Everything's been pretty stagnant on the Green Bay end.
They're going to dick them down.
Cool. Single entry captain, Jacobs or Adams. I mean, my opinion would be I would kind of go with your gut. Does anyone have a strong take on this? I don't even know who to ask this.
No, it's tough.
Jacobs is prop better, but Adams has a higher ceiling.
I would go Jacobs. If you're playing Jimmy G in the team, I would probably go Adams in the single entry just to get better correlation. If not, I'd go Jacobs.
All right. Good question by Beaner. What is Snyder Soldier? I don't have Snyder Soldiers, but Snyder Soldiers making a stop to the show. So thank you, Beaner, for asking about that. Maybe Snyder can post it in the chat. And if I get to that by the end of the show, I'll post it. So if you're watching Snyder Soldiers
versus JBC Jihad.
There you go. Someone said they're fading Dylan. Obviously, that's a big fade. Who's the worst captain? I don't think we should do that. Big T says, how hard is it to hang a six?
No, hold on. Who's the worst captain? Oh, it's definitely fucking Aiden O'Connell.
Yeah, Aiden O'Connell. Who would be like the worst captain that people are actually?
Carlson is the worst captain, both of them.
Yeah, defense.
Yeah, defense.
Fuck defense captain
is the answer.
Big T, I can hang a picture, but I want to make sure I do it properly. So screw you, Big T.
You watching instructional videos on it?
What?
Are you watching instructional videos on it for a month?
Yeah, I mean maybe that's the case. And also, Big T, you don't have, probably. I'd be curious how much he's hung up in his house. I mean, Amber does everything. Amber is the goat wife. I know, JBC. You say your wife is the goat. What?
Maybe you should get you some pussy, and then you'd have that.
Yeah, I got to get one of those. That'd be very helpful. I need to take tips from my guy John right there. So let's see, kicker or defense? If you had to play one today,
kicker.
Yeah, it's kicker.
JBC, kicker.
Kicker.
Cool. Sounds good. We got some go back goes in the chat. 2v2. Dylan, Watson, Taylor. That's a 3v3. Dylan, Watson, Taylor, or Packers, Dobbs, and Taylor.
Dylan.
It is 2v2.
Dylan.
Dylan. Yeah, it's a 2v2 because you put Taylor in there. I hate when people do that because it's very confusing, and I've never understood that. So I don't know what to say. Watson or Dobbs? We talked about that a little bit. I don't know. JBC, do you have a lean on that one?
I would play Dobbs and cash and Watson in an MMA.
Cool. Oh, Patrick Taylor is going to outscore Dylan. That is the Snyder Soldier today.
Patrick Taylor.
All right.
I mean, if they get down, he definitely could. Like he'll play the passing situations over Dylan. That would be the path to that.
Oh, that's.
Any thoughts on Torre? I'm 100% off with the other value. Give me Wicks. Wicks is way better play, and he's way cheaper.
This is the easiest question I've ever gotten. Mangone sucks and Holden's great. So obviously Holden, fuck Mangone all day.
Yep, that is the winner. Pick Holden. Holden is he has his Mondays off, so you can get Holden on Thursday. That's why Wiley doesn't want to do shows with you anymore, and I'm leaning that way too because you love Holden too much. But all right, let's see. Dylan or Carlson? I think the panel says Dylan. Does everyone agree with that one?
100%.
Yeah.
Don't care about the ownership difference.
Okay. Kickers suck. Fuck kickers.
Okay to play wide receivers, but no QB.
No.
You're going to have to put one of the quarterbacks in with the wide receiver for sure. Obviously, you're going to want more often than not. You're going to want the wide receiver. You're going to want the quarterback with the same team on the wide receiver. But it almost always hits one of the quarterbacks when the wide receiver's at the captain, and it's like 2-1. It'll be the same quarterback, same team quarterback.
All right. Can you guys? There's not a lot of questions left, but can you guys take over? I'm going to put my final team in, and I just want to make sure I get the one that matches my core, so no one says you didn't play your core, because that's the worst feeling. But
let's look at your core.
My core is Jacobs captain. It is Jordan Love, and it is AJ Dillon. So.
Yeah, that.
I like that.
That used to be the case, man.
That used to be the case.
Not anymore.
I don't know, dude. You've still been getting good output.
Maybe 40 years ago.
Back 40.
Oh. John, you turned 50.
We had
man.
A couple of weeks. No, like 10.
Right.
Yeah, like 10 years ago. I was still doing okay.
We had this discussion today in our chat. Who do you think would win in a fight from the viewers? Stats or JVC?
It's not even close.
I said Stats. I don't care about the age difference. I think Stats would take your ass.
I have my money on John too, for sure.
I would just I would outlast him until he has to go run and take a shit.
Let's see. Is there any no real overlay? I mean, maybe there's nothing really crazy sticking out to me. I guess there's
Andy.
Gosh.
Yeah, you see, Austin likes money. That's why. See.
Wow, Big T has money on JBC. He will do it, and he takes the next. Take the dub. That's good.
Yeah.
Depends what kind of illegal substances everyone's on. What kind of PEDs?
Yeah, dude, man.
If I give me a month on,
I'll do whatever it takes to whoop your ass.
Give me a month on the juice, man. Forget it.
HGH is like super expensive. My roommate, Akaika, looked at buying some when we were in Chicago. He's like, bro, this is too fucking expensive.
I'll fucking do it.
By the way, news that Jace came across Justin Jefferson, a long shot to play next week. I know it doesn't matter a ton, but hey, if you want to get in on some wagers maybe because you think it matters, there you go. Reed or Dobbs? I think we all say Dobbs. I think we think Reed is for like the farther receiver.
Reed's best.
Oh crap! I forgot to do that. I forgot to take down. Did I take down my head-to-heads? Hopefully, if not, maybe I get auto match against you, Bryce, and we'll call it a day. I don't plan to, but that might just happen right now. So
hell yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's great for Bryce.
No, I'm gonna get it in. I got the cancels off. That's good. So we're getting it off. Maybe I'll get matched against Big T. Actually, I am curious if Big T got the Snyder head-to-head going because that'll be fun. If you did, Big T, definitely post it in the chat. People will enjoy that in the Discord chat. We'll be sweating the games, and games start in 8 seconds. John, before we get on out of here, give your final thoughts.
Like I said, let's go running backs, Jacobs. That's what I like. And the Raiders win it tonight. And they win it fairly easily. Let's go with that.
All right. Well, it's 3 against 1.
31-20 Raiders.
31-20 Raiders. I'm on the Packers side. There is some bias there. Jafar, good luck to you as well. Can't wait to see how the game plays out. I'm excited to watch it. Going to go make some dinner and then go from there. But for me, Mangone, Junior Bacon Cheeseburger, John, and Bryce, we will see you guys later.